Yeah. Yeah. Speaking of questioning the value of your the conventional education, when you think was the epiphany moment? Like when was the epiphany moment to where you thought that it would be more efficient for you to take the path of self-education? Like what was the motivation behind it? And in that time of deciding before the that moment, that sort of period of time when you're kind of juggling the thoughts and the processes of like, hey, is this worth it? Is this not worth it? What would you change about that? Like, what would you change? Would you tell yourself that, your old self, that, you know what, just don't overthink it, just go for this path because I know it's more lucrative, it's more rewarding? Or like what part of the journey would you change?
I don't really know if I'd change anything, but in terms of the turning point for me, it was actually very early on. But I did have conflicts just because of how like hardwired people are to kind of follow the traditional path, right? So even I had those kind of self doubts, but for the most part, it was when I saw all these startups blowing up, and they were run by like 17-year-old kids, and they were getting like VC funding, and they're all like software developers.
Mhm.
And for me, I didn't do any of that. But what was really pivotal for me was when I first got a freelance job. They didn't even know like how old I am, and they didn't even care. But the fact that I was able to do something for them and was rewarded for that purely off just like learning on my own on the side, that was definitely something that kicked the gears for me.
Yeah, going on to the topic of self-education, how did you start? Like, what? How did you find it? How did you realize that this is the pathway I want to go on?
Right. I think I got a course from my friend, a Udemy course. Like he just gave me his account, and it was a web development course, like a full web development course. You can style, make your website, whatever, database, etc. And that was the first course I ever took in the field. And and it was I thought the quality of education, like they're just more passionate than the average teacher in teaching. So I did kind of go on a binge fest for those types of courses on Udemy for different types of things that I was interested in. And again, when I got like actual freelance jobs for that, it just kind of just helped the cycle keep going. Really, like yeah.
And like following up for those people who are looking to get into self-education, how easy would you say it was to get started?
I think there's so many resources now that I think it's a lot easier than it was for me. And even it was even easy for me, but now it's even easier. Is what I'm saying. Like it gets exponentially bigger every time. So and there's such a big community of people who are learning in public as well, and that's a big thing now. Like if you go on Twitter, people just learn in public. There's this thing called 100 Days of Code where people share like new things that they make every day, and they do it for 100 days, and then they get feedback, and so there's a lot of kind of a community and a lot of again resources, and it's also getting a lot easier to build things now too.